What's up, everybody? It's the Roundtable Sports Podcast. My name is Taylor McLean, and it's been an exciting couple of days with the NFL draft going down. We had a lot of action. A lot of players have already been picked. I'm actually recording this during day 3, so there's still some draft left to go here, and there still could be some big moves as this happens, but I feel like we've got most everything in the books as far as what we can see. And one of the first points I wanted to make with the NFL draft is what I'm watching right now with the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round is a lot of the unseen movement that your teams are going to take in this upcoming year, because it's really hard to predict which one of those players are going to have an impact and which one of them are going to have roles on your team at this point. Some of them won't even make the team right off the bat. They'll have to bounce around a little bit until they find their home. But the point is that, you know, when you see teams make big jumps, a lot of times it's because they made picks that we're not going to discuss today, and they made moves that really make their team better on the edges of the team. I've been listening to Dallas radio because I'm a Dallas football fan, and they're talking about how we got Deron Bland and our other cornerback that played significant snaps later in the year because these guys are your backups. The average NFL career is I think it's 3.5 or 2.5 even years or something. Maybe it's just 3, but regardless, it's not 4 years. It's usually not the life of one of these contracts. A lot of them get cut before that. And the players that you see get re-signed and the players that you see get second contracts, and you see that teams are excited to sign in free agency or excited to extend by their own team are actually kind of the outliers. And each team has between like 10 to 12 players that you can give above a certain level contract. And the salary cap's going up, but so are the player salaries. There's inflation every year with these contracts, and it's never more evident than what you see with the quarterback contracts. I mean, we saw Lamar finally get his deal right before the draft, and it was just a little bit above what Jalen Hurts gets, and the next guy who signs will get a little bit above that, and so forth. Lamar was trying to get a piece of the Deshaun Watson outlier situation, but the NFL proved that it was an outlier by not jumping all over getting Lamar with one of those bigger contracts. I know that the first round picks with Lamar definitely played a part in that, but I also don't think that any other team was going to meet that price. And so he was willing to go back to Baltimore and, just basically gave him the Jalen Hurts contract and said, make it a little bit more than this, it felt like. So good for Lamar. He's gotten a lot of help too. I didn't mean to start with Lamar necessarily, but I do want to break on into it while we're sitting here and say, he got Odell. They drafted Zay Flowers. He's going to get Rashad Bateman back. Definitely got some help in this last couple of weeks. I think that probably helped his mindset as well. I do like Zay Flowers a lot for them, and it does kind of lean into them being a little bit more dynamic with their passing, because they've really leaned into the running when they didn't have the horses on the outside to really merit that kind of offense. And this should take a little bit of pressure off Lamar to have to be the entire offense as far as him running the ball. There should be a lot more easy throws because he's getting a lot more separation, and it stresses the defense out a lot more to have someone as fast as Rashad Bateman and Zay Flowers are, and then have somebody have the possession bodies out there with Mark Andrews and Odell, who are also capable of stretching the field. That is, if Odell hasn't lost too many steps with being off so long and with his leg injury. That wasn't a inconsequential injury that he had there. It was later in the year, but it definitely showed us that it was not inconsequential, that it took him so long to kind of get right and get the deal. It also might have been him holding out for the right deal as well. But I think the Cowboys would have signed him had there been enough help for him to go, and clearly there wasn't enough health for him to go. So oh well. I've said before, if he looks anything like what he looked like with the Rams, then that could be a big boon for Lamar and the type of guy that Lamar hasn't really had, or at least it's been some time. So good for them. Definitely going to win my bet that Lamar Jackson will be a starter in 2025. I'm going to go ahead and mentally cash that $50 that my friend's going to owe me because he's such a Lamar hater. So anyway, my intention was to talk about the first part of the draft. That was actually what I set out to do, even though I guess Lamar kind of stole the very first part, signing that deal right before the draft got going there. And of course, if you know me or have listened to me for any amount of time, the quarterbacks is a big part of what I do and what I'm interested in. And of course, the first round gave us three quarterbacks. Thought we might get four, but it only ended up being three, with Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, and Anthony Richardson getting picked 3 out of the first 4 picks. Obviously, the Bryce Young part was no surprise. And I thought from the beginning that he was going to be the number one quarterback taken, even in the wake of all the CJ Stroud news. I did take that very seriously. The coaches telling him he's going to love it in Charlotte and, blah, blah, blah. That video that came out did look pretty convincing, but Bryce Young definitely looks like the best guy. And if he was bigger, there would have been no doubt. And I don't think that they would have still taken him had they had Justin Fields. But if he'd have been the same size as Aaron Rodgers and done what he did out there on the field, then there would have been no question whatsoever. But it's good. It's good for Carolina to get their guy. They did trade a lot, including DJ Moore and all the picks to get there. But I think they did the right thing for their franchise. Number one, going with Bryce first overall, but also going for it and trying to reset the pattern that they had been going under with trying to retread guys and trying to really band-aid over the quarterback position. As much as I like them taking a shot on Sam Darnold at a discount, it was just time to go another route. And Frank Reich, I like the way that he does things on offense, and maybe I overrate him. I always thought that it was a lot of the offensive success of the Eagles was because of Frank Reich, but Doug Peterson definitely showed us that he had an equal hand in that. And the fact that, Frank couldn't get anything going in Indianapolis also had a lot to do with the retread situation he had going on in Indianapolis. And of course, Indianapolis is one of our other teams that decided that they weren't going that route either. Same thing with the Texans. They all went ahead and cashed their chips in for a quarterback. Good thing for Bryce as well. I thought I liked the idea that they were able to get Jonathan Mingo to add to their receiver core. I didn't really like the way that Adam Thielen looked last year. And it's Adam Thielen, DJ Chark, Terrence Strong, Shi Smith, adding Jonathan Mingo to that. And then on top of adding Hayden Hurst to your tight end, I like that a lot for them to try and get something going. And they also got a guard as well, one that played with Ike Ekwonu, a 4th-round pick, but guards are underdrafted typically, and you can a lot of times get a good one later in the draft. So I like them adding things along with Bryce, and Jonathan Mingo slipped into the 2nd round. He's got really good size and runs pretty well for a guy of his size. So just trying to inject some life into that wide receiver core makes a lot of sense. And I know they didn't want to give up DJ Moore. It would have been great to have him to try and usher Bryce in, and Bryce would have been a good fit for that. But, that was a big part of the trade for Chicago as well. They want to put some talent around Justin Fields and really see what they've got with him as a passer. and really see what changes they need to make for him as a passer. And you can't really do that if you don't know what he can do with an actual complement of NFL receivers. And he did not, there was not a lot of easy throws for Justin Fields last year. So DJ Moore, Claypool, hopefully having more time in the mix, that should make things better. I believe Chicago also addressed their weapons in the draft. I'll need to get that pulled up, but still, Chicago also spent their first round pick getting Justin some help with the offensive line too. So that'll be a big deal. Their offensive line was not good. Their offensive weapons overall outside of David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert and a little bit of Darnell Mooney. And then Velus Jones had like one play in the last half of the year. That was pretty much it for Justin to have to work off of. So getting Darnell right in there. They also, I kind of liked Tyler Scott. So they got him late, brought in Roschon Johnson to on top of Deontay Foreman earlier in the process. So you've got three backs to kind of mix in there and that give you different things. So Chicago definitely did a good job of getting some more stuff for Justin to work around. And for the defense too, they spent some picks on defense, getting tougher up the middle and then getting a cornerback as well. So I'm interested in Chicago. I have a lot riding. I have a decent amount riding on Justin Fields. I thought he should have been the second pick at quarterback in that draft. And I said so after that disastrous rookie season. So I feel like I'm an early adopter. And so I'm excited for him to have gotten some actual help. And as much as I'm excited to see Bryce with the help he's going to get then. And then they do owe additional picks, next year. But so they'll be able to bring in more and more help for Bryce. And they already have some line help. They've got Miles Sanders in there, and they've done a decent job of upgrading from when it was just Shi Smith and Terrence Marshall. But having them as 3 and 4 isn't bad either. So good thing for Bryce. Houston Texans have also been busy. I think that I should have led with that. I think I'm going to have someone on from the Houston area to talk more about it. But it was a little bit surprising after everything that had happened that they did end up going with CJ Stroud at number 2. I thought he was the second best quarterback in this class. And while he definitely has some warts and some things to prove on the NFL level, I think he has the abilities to be a solid quarterback. So to see the Texans do what they did and go ahead and take that plunge is good. I'm very on board with that. And I hope it ends up working out for them. He does seem a little mechanical, and he doesn't seem as creative as some of the other guys that end up being really, really good quarterbacks. Like that is an issue. He didn't have to create all that much because Ohio State was always better than their opponents. But then you see them in the Georgia game and he's having to run around a little bit. He's always had the mobility, but it doesn't seem like he's used it. And that was always an issue. And then, like I said, with the creativity and with the just like running the second play of an NFL play and that kind of thing seemed just a little stiff. So while I had reservations, it's definitely the shot I would have taken with the Texans. And then they got really aggressive, gave up their second round pick as well as 12 and their own first round pick in next year's draft to move up and get Will Anderson. I can tell you unequivocally that while there's a little bit of trepidation and while there's a lot of holes in the Texans, like overall scheme and overall roster, I don't hate the move at all. And it gives you 2 cornerstone guys to build off of with your new regime on a team that absolutely lacked cornerstone guys. Like I really like Dameon Pierce, that's great. And Laramie Tunsil, maybe a little overpaid, but definitely solid. And then who can you point to in the rest of the offense that gives you any sort of excitement or makes you feel like you've got a cornerstone type guy? Wasn't a lot going on there. And you come out, you get Will Anderson, you get CJ Stroud. You're no longer going to have to deal with Davis Mills. And you don't have to worry now about being a tank team to have your future go correctly. Now, CJ Stroud might not work out, but at the very least, like you have some sort of direction. And this direction could lead in a Mitch Trubisky, Jared Goff type direction, or this could lead into like a, Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, or even into the top tier. If he really comes together as a passer, he has all the tools. He's got plenty of arm. He was really accurate. It's just going to be a question of his processing. Like, is he going to be a fast processor in the NFL? Is he going to be able to make multiple reads? Is he going to be able to read the whole field? Is he going to be able to make a read without staring down the receiver? Is he going to be able to throw guys open when they're covered and deliver balls where only his guys can get it type throws? I mean, that's the questions that we're going to have here. He has the ability. So at least you kind of have some direction. And next year, there's going to be two really good, maybe even three or four good quarterback prospects. But if you win 6 games because you're better and you draft better and you have a better coaching staffs, and the first two teams in front of you need quarterback, it doesn't matter how many first round picks you have. They're not going to trade those picks. They're going to get their quarterback. So you have to take a shot when you have the shot. Whether you, I mean, it's kind of is what it is. Like, I have the second pick in my dynasty draft, and Jahmyr Gibbs didn't go to a perfect place. So what do I do? Do I just kind of let that go? But he got top 12 billing, right? So I don't know. That's kind of you kind of have to take the shot when you get it. Luckily, for me, for that pick, for Jahmyr Gibbs going to Detroit, which was kind of a surprise, and Detroit kind of had some surprise picks throughout, even though they make a lot of sense when you look at them in the aggregate. They did trade DeAndre Swift to the Philadelphia Eagles. This one just happened. Philadelphia gave up a 4th-round pick, which is not nothing, but is not necessarily a ton for a player that could be big for them when they had Rashad Penny as well as Kenneth Gainwell. And I don't know if Boston Scott is a free agent or not, but we'll go with it. Adding DeAndre Swift over the top of that definitely is a win now, looks good move for a guy that is explosive and is dynamic, but has had trouble staying on the field. Same thing with Rashad Penny. I don't mind taking that shot at all and trying to get yourself moving in the right direction with that. As a Cowboys fan, clearly that's crushing. And I'm definitely scared of what the Eagles were able to put together with this draft here, because they had Jalen Carter fall to their lap. They had Nolan Smith fall into their lap. Keely Ringo fell to the 4th round. They got their offensive tackle, Tyler Sleen, to kind of back things up when they lost Hilliard this year. They got a safety that the draft pundits liked. I don't like that at all, because that addresses a lot of what they needed. And they have a lot of Georgia infrastructure now. There's a lot of Georgia jokes going around with the DeAndre Swift thing on top of Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith. And then, of course, they have Jordan Davis from last year. And they also drafted Dean, the middle linebacker that didn't play a lot, but definitely seemed to slip by most people's evaluations, even though he's kind of undersized. So we'll see if that actually ends up working out or not. But definitely, Eagles fans, I am terrified of your draft. And it made me feel uncomfortable in all sorts of different ways. So I hope that makes you feel great, which it should. The other quarterback we had go on here was Anthony Richardson. I really liked Anthony Richardson for the Indianapolis Colts. He has warts, no doubt. The accuracy was even on the short stuff. I mean, it was just it was out of whack, and he has a lot of work to do with his footwork to get that in order. I think a lot of NFL teams are going to challenge him to throw it, and it's going to be an interesting study in physical attributes versus accuracy and quarterback acumen coming in, because Anthony Richardson has not started a lot of games. So there's that, and that's one of the things that Bill Parcells used to stress when drafting a guy is you want him to have started a bunch of games so that you're not building from so close to the ground up into the sky. He didn't want to have to do that much work, and And really, the only way that you kind of get that experience is starting games. So, start getting that experience in the NFL is not typically a good thing. It's not great. So, the Colts will be dealing with that on the fly, and they don't have an exactly domineering starter in place, unlike the Titans. Not that Ryan Tannehill is domineering. That's not the right adjective at all. Middle of the pack would be what I would call it, but at best. But still, established. That's probably the more appropriate, respectful word. But they do have an established guy. Gardner Minshew is established, but established as a solid backup that can come in and win you a game, but over a large stretch of games is going to be exposed possibly by the Cowboys if you are a Philadelphia Eagle. So take that, Eagles. You beat the crap out of us a lot this year, so we have very few wins. But anyway, I don't see that Gardner Minshew, maybe he starts some games over Anthony Richardson. Maybe. I doubt it because they need to they have committed. This is it. This is your guy. You're moving forward with him, whatever it takes. Good thing is the guy is just teeming with physical ability. The physical ability is there. And those are the type of guys that you give the leash to make mistakes and try and get better through those mistakes. It's kind of the same thing as Josh Allen. He was inaccurate in college as well and had all the physical ability in the world. And the Bills gave him a ton of leash to get things right. And you know what? He showed progression step by step and he fulfilled his promise. And Anthony Richardson has that kind of ascent to, get there, but he has just as good of physical skills as Josh Allen. Not the arm strength exactly, but he's a better runner. So it's a little out of whack, and that does put Anthony at a little bit more of a disadvantage, but at more of an advantage in that he can run like nobody's business. When in the games that you don't like, they're able to pin him in a little bit, and maybe that goes just not being as comfortable and not with improving and stuff, which is one of those things that gets better with the more starts you have, which is exactly what we're talking about here, right? But I think it's a worthwhile venture, especially for the Colts that have a lot of infrastructure. Like the Texans, they don't have as many playmakers / infrastructure as the Colts do. Not even close, really. Michael Pittman might be kind of a Nimrod and might not possess like the ultimate instincts or know-how as a receiver. Matt Ryan was not happy with his play at times, but he is pretty good. And maybe you don't want to pay him like a super duper star wide receiver on your team or anything. Maybe that's an issue. But at the same time, I think he gives Anthony a lot of a solid target radius and a lot of hope that he can make Anthony better in this first part of his career throwing the ball. And then they had Alec Pierce. I like him as a receiver. Maybe he doesn't end up being super dynamic either, but he showed traits of being a pretty solid guy as a rookie, which usually means you can build on that because rookie receivers typically have a tougher time and make an explosive leap. If they show competence in the first year, usually there can be an explosive jump coming after that. So that'll be the hope. And then also they were able to add Josh Downs, who I like a lot, to their haul in the third round. So I like that addition to what they got there. In addition to taking another shot at offensive tackle, they grabbed a cornerback in round 2. They had a decent secondary last year, but they lost Gilmore. They traded Gilmore, who was long in the 2. So hopefully they can replace that in because they have pieces. Like I said, they have more pieces in place. The offensive line is better. I would say the weapons are better. The overall infrastructure is better in Indianapolis, I think. But well, maybe not the infrastructure. Hopefully the new infrastructure is better. We'll see. But to the point on the infrastructure, the scheme should be a match as well. The Eagles offensive coordinator that's taken over is said to have wanted a guy kind of like Jalen Hurts to work with too. So add that on to Jonathan Taylor, add that on to Gunner and the offensive line and some key pieces up the middle and on the defense, and there should be something here for Anthony to work with. So while I like CJ and I like Bryce better to have a better career, maybe Anthony has the bigger upside here. And I think he landed in the best possible situation he could have landed in. And to the Colts' credit, they stayed pat. They didn't give up a single thing, and they got their guy that they were looking for. So it's at 4. Maybe that's a little early, for somebody that's so raw. But then again, same thing as the Texans, right? You don't have that same wander that you would have had you passed on it, had you moved back or whatever. Maybe you could have gotten Will Levis later on too. That's also something that was on the table. The Titans moved up and grabbed him as the 4th guy. And then Detroit, we talked about, grabbed the 5th guy with Hendon Hooker, who is coming off an ACL tear. So I don't think we're supposed to see him next season, even if Jared Goff gets hurt, but an interesting pickup for them. I thought, I'm not a huge Jared Goff guy. So why not take a shot at it where they took it? It was kind of a zero-sum move, even though it's a third rounder, a high third rounder, but a third rounder, not the second, especially when they had already, gotten Laporta, they'd gotten Branch, Gibbs, Campbell. That's a big time step towards being a really physical team. And I'm super glad for my Jahmyr Gibbs stock I'm about to have, that he is about to not have to deal with DeAndre Swift. Unfortunately, I'll have to deal with him in the more important aspect of my life, which is the Cowboys. But it's exciting. It's all exciting stuff. I just want to see good football. And I think these 3 quarterbacks, getting these 3 teams, makes it more exciting. Like the Texans not picking a quarterback, that would have been a dumpster fire of a watch next year. Like having to watch Davis Mills for another year. I may still have to do that if CJ Stroud gets hurt, God forbid. But that would have been super painful to watch for me. I would not have liked it at all. And I'm glad to not have it in my life. Having CJ Stroud back there, at least I get to evaluate that and see where he's at. Having Bryce Young back there, seeing where that offense can go from there. And then having Anthony Richardson, seeing what he can do in year 1. And then, of course, we may not get to see the 4th guy, Will Levis, but I was happy with where he went too. I like the Titans trading up right there and getting Will Levis. I may have a lot more questions about Will Levis than I do the other guys. Maybe it's an equal amount between him and Anthony Richardson. Maybe I give Anthony the nod, but still, it's a certain amount of side eye that I give both of them because of their deficiencies. But still, where the Titans were right there to pull the trigger on Levis, I think that was solid value for them. Tannehill is on his last year of the deal, and he's pretty much proven that he's just not going to take like a mediocre team over the top. You have to win in spite of him, not because of him. And that's not what, most teams aspire for. The Titans paid the 41st pick. So it was the 33rd pick they were trading up to. So they traded a 3rd rounder next year and a 3rd rounder this year, as well as their 2nd rounder to get up there and get Will Levis. So a decent amount of draft capital for sure. And I do like the fit. As I said, I don't think that Tannehill is long for the Titans or a plus starter in this league simply based on his inability to really process fast, to be able to throw guys open consistently. And when he's locked into the tackles and the other team knows that he's going to have to throw it, it's not a plus situation. It's a very negative situation for the Titans, especially since they traded away A.J. Brown, which got the GM fired that week when they played the Titans. So new GM coming in, they can put their stamp on it with Will Levis, give him a chance to learn behind a professional, because that is one thing that Tannehill is professional. It's not going to be his job to tutor Will Levis, but Will Levis can watch and get the speed for the game a little bit before he's thrust into it, barring a Tannehill injury, which could absolutely happen. That's another issue with his situation. Now, of course, the Titans are not bereft of a young quarterback either. They do have Malik Willis. Malik is about 10 times more raw than Will Levis is as a passer right now, guaranteed. Not having seen Will Levis throw a pass in the NFL at all. That's how raw Malik Willis was as a passer. The thing is, Malik Willis did show that he does have plus athletic ability. So he's going to get a shot at this too. And he will have a year on Will Levis to have had the game and some starts and a lot of snaps out there. But he didn't really develop a whole lot passing wise in those snaps. And he does have, a perfect team, not a perfect team, but a good team with Derrick Henry, et cetera, to kind of set him up for that. And it did not work. So that's one of the tough things on getting on the field early, is it can kind of be a strike against you. And then instead of, they're developing, players to put around you, they're developing a person to compete with you. So yeah, it would have been a lot cooler had they used those picks for Malik and gotten wide receiver, gotten more offensive line help or whatever. But that's how little he showed in this last year, unfortunately. It is what it is, and he'll still get a chance to compete. But I think Will Levis and his ability to throw the ball vertically makes a lot more sense for him. It's just for all of these guys, it's how much can you increase your Jedi? How, you don't just start off and know how to do everything, right? You got to study, you got to learn, you got to get better. You have to develop better chemistry with the wide receivers. You have to get more cold with the play calls and with the where everybody's going to be. You have to be more in line with everything so that you can focus on the little things. That was a big deal for Kenny Pickett, which I do want to talk about the Steelers as well. Not to move along from Will Levis too quickly. I'm super excited about that move for the Titans. And I want to watch him play some quarterback because I think he could be something and has just as good has a good shot at doing so. Maybe as good a shot as Kenny Pickett. Like, he has better physical tools than Kenny Pickett does, but I think Kenny Pickett is a cooler customer, and I think he's a better processor already. So we'll see. But I was, as a person that made a Kenny Pickett video, which if you found me in the last year might be how you found me, knows I wanted a lot of help for him so that he would have the tools to get better. I hated the left tackle that they had, number 65. I can't remember your name off the top, but you did not look good. Not that you're listening. And I was super excited to see them get Broderick Jones and Darnell Washington. They spent their other picks, including their Claypool haul, on Joey Porter Jr. and Benton, the defensive tackle from Wisconsin. That's neither here nor there. I was way more excited about the Broderick Jones, Darnell Washington pairing that they got for Kenny. And the main thing being, like I said, 65 got tricked all too often with his moves, with stunts, just did not have a good time out there when he had to think beyond the obvious. And I think that Broderick Jones can step in there and immediately take everybody. It kind of, I'm a big fan, a big proponent of putting everybody in their appropriate role and putting an offensive lineman over the top of this group. And then adding Isaac Seumalo on top of that was big for me. I think adding two quality pieces, because he is a quality piece, while a little older, while he's coming up on 30, I do think it was a quality addition. Adding those two pieces means a lot to me. And then having Darnell Washington step in and be able to be a blocking tight end that has, the ability to get vertical a little bit as well. I just like those moves for the offense. I think that it's going to make not a lot easier for Najee to be able to run, which is going to make everything easier for Kenny, which is going to make everything easier for the offense. It's going to make everything flow a lot better. George Pickens in another year, with another year under his belt, he looked incredible. And, like I said, if it looks like that in the rookie year, a lot of times they have a big explosion in the second year. So I'm all over George Pickens in my fantasy drafts. And then Freiermuth on top of that. Now Freiermuth doesn't have to have as many responsibilities in the run blocking game if he doesn't need to. And he can be explosive out there and seem to have a pretty good connection with Kenny as well. So things looking up on the Pittsburgh front. I was just very excited when I saw they got the offensive tackle. They had to trade up to do it, but they did it. And I'm very happy with that. I'm very happy with this draft overall. I wanted a better spot for Jahmyr Gibbs, but there was some excitement too, like Quinton Johnson getting with Justin Herbert. That's incredible. That's an incredible pairing. Quinton is a little raw in some ways, and I don't know that he's a for sure number one or anything. If I did, I'd take him at number two overall with Justin Herbert being his quarterback. But I can't get enough of thinking about that pairing. Same thing with Addison. I really liked that for the Vikings. I thought there was a nice little run on wide receivers. Say Flowers, same thing. I thought there was a nice little run of wide receivers there. I was disappointed for the Cowboys on that, but I liked the where they went. I thought there was a lot of. I thought Mingo was juicy, so there's a lot of intrigue with these picks, and I like that. It didn't. I don't know if it felt that way going in necessarily, just because the draft class itself seemed to be a little weak, but it seemed like they got some nice spots, and now best ball season can start. Now we know where these guys are going to go. There'll be some additional free agent signings after this. What if they go out and sign Kareem Hunt or I don't know, Melvin Gordon? That scares the crap out of me as I say the words, but I mean, I don't know. There's going to be that too, but now we kind of have most of it in the books now, and now we kind of know what's what. So I'm excited to get after that. I'm excited to break this down further too. I know this is just kind of the immediate reaction, and I need some time to kind of think about a lot of these things and how I feel. But a lot of good stuff here. I mean, I didn't even get to Dalton Kincaid going the closest thing that we've seen to Travis Kelce in this draft, or at least has the potential to be. So he's going to the Buffalo Bills. That's exciting. A couple other second round tight ends: Miles Murphy, Musgrave, Schoonmaker. Come on. It's a great name. I don't know why I like it, but I'm into the Schoon. So we'll get after that. We'll have more for you on the draft, more videos, more everything. So look forward to that. Definitely subscribe if you have and download the podcast if you haven't already done so. Like if you're on YouTube, that's a big one for me as well. And have a great rest of your day.